thank you so much, Linda, and I just want to thank LHUCA, Lindsay, Executive Director. It's so wonderful to be back here. I was here, as Linda said, 3 years ago in 2018. I was very new on the art scene in Houston. I just had my first solo show, and all of a sudden I had an email from Linda Cullum in Lubbock inviting 3 paintings into 44 artists from Texas. So I came for that opening, and that was a pretty magical experience for me then. I met Linda, of course, in person, which was exciting, and then I met Charles Adams. Charles Adams introduced me to Shannon Cannings, which was wonderful, and it was 104 degrees that day, and Shannon said, well, I'd like to give you a tour of this whole campus. And Shannon introduced me to Rachel Anderson, then that turned into a 2.5-year long-distance collaboration. So Lubbock is very much in my heart, and I'm very grateful to be back. This is one of several hundred self-portraits I've created in the last several years. Paintings, drawings, linocuts, mixed media pieces, sculptures, and poetry. And so I'm going to read a poem that I wrote about my self-portrait work and process called Plural Truths. It'll give you some insight into why I do this. The older I get, the harder I look, owning my physical truth in its many forms. Lines and spots, bleachers of wrinkles betraying simmering intensity. Deep crevices dividing overplucked brows. Puffy bags encroaching with purpose on large, dark eyes. Insurance might pay to fix that, actually, said a friend, unsolicited. Fading lips meet with a freckle on top, still the intermittent zit, a full head of tawny hair, curlier in the back, only the occasional gray, somehow. I see an emerging confidence growing like points in an airline mileage program. Resilience hard-won through courageous conversations after sleepless nights. I see a wife, mother, daughter, sister, friend, colleague, neighbor, citizen, artist. I see angst, anger, hope, arrogance, fear, savvy, naivete, wins, losses, courage, pain, humor, anxiety, persistence, all bound up in a complicated, plain-spoken sass who suffers, but not mendacity or fools. I see aliveness and a clearly aging human being. I began painting myself at 42 or 3. 15 years on, I still return. Out of convenience partly, but mostly curiosity, exploration, a need for authentic conversation. Photographs record spontaneous moments. I crop tight and paint to the edge to convey urgency, agency. I don't do plastic surgery. What I see is what you get, my plural truths. So in this painting, I am parked at our kitchen table on a Sunday morning. I've got my hand around a hot cup of coffee in an oversized English teacup. Our high-maintenance multi-coup, Cotton, on my lap, and I'm watching Meet the Press. My husband walks into the kitchen, and I pitched in my phone, and I said, get it, all of it. I know I look like hell, I don't care. Just get the shot, which he did, and now it's one of his favorite paintings. So the vast majority of my self-portraits are a little unnerving, but for me they depict, a version of my truth. And I've really never been interested in pretty in the traditional sense. I think that's pretty clear here. In a world fraught with judgment and cruelty, and obsessed with conformity and physical perfection, and frankly, a world bereft of self-compassion. I look for beauty in the moment, as is. That's what I find most beautiful. Just moments like this on a Sunday morning at a kitchen table. I record the human need to be authentically seen. I photograph, draw, and paint myself and people I know, love, and encounter. My subjects share a strong sense of self and a willingness to be known. My paintings are a collaboration and can be a loaded proposition. There's something to saying yes to a Sarah Fisher portrait. I say it's a loaded proposition because I really don't art direct my photo shoots. And most of my paintings, with a couple exceptions here, if I ask someone, could I paint you? Turns out they're saying yes to not only being painted, but to being photographed. There are a couple exceptions here. The woman down sitting on the table, we were in a critique in arts at the Glass House School of Art, and she was just sitting there in our critique, and I thought, God, she's so gorgeous, and the angles, and I just said, hey, and I got her spontaneously, and she agreed. She was fine with me painting her. And the gentleman with the cane is another example of a very spontaneous situation that I'll go into more depth later. But by and large, I plan a photo shoot with my subjects, and I ask them to think about a couple things before I arrive. And that is, how would you like to be seen? How would you like to be known? Where would you like to be photographed? And then I ask them to think about, how would you like to sit? Would you like to stand? And then I really leave it to the subject to do that. And all I bring to these photo shoots is my iPhone and an open mind. I do ask my subjects to look directly at me, but what they end up looking at is my phone. And then I'm looking at them while they're looking at my phone. So what that, if you see here, what I'm able to gather from that is an honesty and intensity, but hopefully also in a relaxed manner. And that's where I think the beauty of all these brave, fierce people are able to trust me to paint. So I'm all about recording the confidence that each of these individuals embodied when they said yes to being painted. But there's one other thing I want to say before I take you through a couple more paintings. I'm also really quite obsessed with making the most beautiful paintings that I can make. Of course, I'm interested in conveying the psychological truth of each person, but when I have that painting on my easel, I also look at it just as a straight up painting, and I want to make the most gorgeous, exciting, bold piece of art that I possibly can. So I'm constantly balancing, the two objectives. This is a portrait of my dear friend, Doug Welsh, who I met in a painting class at the Glass House School. We ended entering this 2-year block studio program together in 2016, in the fall. And I was looking for people to paint. This program was going to be critiqued every week for 2 years. So I asked Doug if he would sit for me. And he said, absolutely. So we each had our own studios, and so we went into his studio. I said, well, how would you like to be seen? And he just plopped down on the floor, sat Indian style, in his blue painting coveralls, and with a couple of his beautiful abstract paintings behind him. And then, if you come up close later, you'll see the outline of the ball cap here, baseball hat. And again, this was the fall of 2016. Doug had something he wanted to say, and on the hat was embroidered, "Make America Gay Again." Someone had given him this hat. So that's how I photographed him, and went back to my studio, got right to work. And as I often do, I blocked him in, blocked the figure in, and I proceeded to paint him in a very literal way. So all the details, the lines of the studio, the paintings, the hat, it was all there. And I was pretty happy with it. I captured him. It was a pretty decent, it was a good painting. And I was getting good feedback on it in my critiques. But there was something about it that was just like, it's just not quite there. It did not, for me, depict the electricity and the dynamic nature of this young artist's persona. And I felt like I needed to challenge myself to, I just needed to go further. So one of my mantras when I'm painting, and I have something that's I think is good, but it can be better, and I want to take a bold step, I'm trying to push myself, I tell myself, it's only paint. And sometimes I even say it out loud. So in this case, I said, it's only paint, come on. And I had this vision, just had this word in my mind, vermilion, which is the title of this electric orangey red color. And I had a big tube of it, and I grabbed it, and I had a palette knife, which I don't usually use. I just squished out a bunch of this paint, and if you look at this, you can see I just went after it with my palette knife. And I just started blanking out parts of the composition that I didn't think were necessary or were distracting or just weren't adding. And that included, at some point, taking this blue and painting over the hat. And I was left with his powerful, almost mask-like face, and some of the essences of his beautiful work. I even painted in one of his hands orange, and I remember sitting back going, yes, now it's finished. And so, and this is the first time I've exhibited this painting, so it's really, it's thrilling for me to have this on the wall in a gallery. And I'll tell you the story. It's amazing. So this has only happened to me once. I don't know that I'll ever do this again, but I was driving back actually from my block studio, which I'm, the glass cell block I was in. I drove through the Houston Medical Center. It was late afternoon, lots of cars. I was stuck at a light, and I looked over, and there was a bus stop, and here was this gentleman standing there. I'll never forget it. The sun was late afternoon, the sun was on him, and just the way he held himself. I was just spellbound. I mean, he was such a beautiful human being. The cool confidence that he had. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. I was just like, come on, just do it. So I pulled over, I parked, I got my phone ready, I pulled up some of my paintings on my phone, and I walked over, and I introduced myself and said, I know this is kind of crazy, but I'm a local artist. I paint portraits. Here's some of my works. And I would be so honored if I could possibly take your photograph and paint you. And he smiled, and he looked at me and he said, I was a painter 30 years ago when I about, fell over. And then he proceeded to tell me some pretty amazing things. He'd had some struggles in his life. And then he said, now I'm 72, and I'm very happy. And I mean, you could just see it. He was just a warm, joyful person. And so then I took a couple photographs of him, not too many, but enough. I showed him. He liked what he saw. And I said, you're such a beautiful man. And I gave him a big hug, which imagine today, we're getting back to that, which is good. And I looked at him, and there were tears coming down his face, which was really very emotional. I'm now going to start to cry. Okay. So, and I thanked him again, and then the bus came up, and he got on the bus and he left. So I never got his name or contact, nothing. I mean, I was left with the photographs and the memory, and I emailed myself the story. Thank God, 56. I'm sure glad I had that email to remember our conversation. Okay, so flash forward. It gets better. Flash forward a couple weeks, a woman who was one of my first commissioned clients, and she became a very good friend. She is an emerging writer. She wrote a book that she self-published on Amazon called, her name's Maria Merrill. It's called Being Seen. It's a great book. If you want to look for it on Amazon.com. She wrote about her desire to be painted and then my painting her. And I couldn't believe she did this. So I had a little event for her at my house where she could read from her book. And during that event, I had people, I was also painting at home. I had some people were in that space, and I had some photos out on the table of people I was thinking about painting. And someone said, who's that? It's this gentleman. So I told the story, which at that time was very later, I got a message from one of these friends who says, the man on the bus, or the man at the bus stop, is on the front page of the Houston Chronicle. And I brought it. I have it.
So this is from 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm just going to pass it
Same here.
So, I couldn't believe it. There he was, in the same beautiful fedora, the same sport coat, you know, the whole dapper look. I mean, it was so cool, you know? The gentleman on the right, his name is Clint Willauer. And I'm going to read to you from his amazing obituary in the Houston Chronicle from this past February. He was described as a gallerist, a curator, collector, friend, and a mentor to generations of artists and other members of a diverse and international arts community. To me, and everyone I know in the Houston arts community, he was Clint. You didn't have to hear Clint Willauer. There was one Clint, and it was just amazing. I first met Clint when I was in painting classes at LaSalle, a long time ago when I first started painting. And he was the person who would come for the critique that you were both excited about and terrified. Because he was so smart and he had such an amazing eye. And you wanted your eyes on his work, but man, you better be ready for the truth, which was wonderful. We also knew him because he came to everyone's opening. I mean, he was everywhere all the time. And he supported everyone. And his dear, dear friend, Betty Moody, who still runs Moody Gallery, I remember she told us when they came to visit our block program that Clint would go to the opening of an envelope. And it was true, just wonderful supporter of all of us. So I emailed him, he said yes. I asked him where he wanted to be seen and how, and he said he wanted to be photographed at Moody Gallery. So I met him there, and he knew right where he wanted to sit on this super cool black leather chair, and then he sat in front of this incredible Michael Kennard painting. And I thought, oh, great. Now I've signed up to paint Clint and a Michael Kennard painting. Well, good luck to me. But that was also very exciting. After the photo shoot that day, I remember I took Betty aside and I asked her, I said, you know, when I finish this, Betty, would you please look at it first? And before I show it to Clint, and she said she would. And so several weeks later, I rang the gallery and asked Betty, I told her I was ready, brought it over. She liked it, which was very exciting. And then she called Clint, and so he came over, and I was back in the back gallery, right where we'd done our photo shoot. And I remember him coming around the corner, catching sight of me, smiling, sitting down in front of the painting, studying it in depth, and then turning to me and saying, "You have my blessing." Never have I been so relieved or happy. So that was really, really special. After he passed away in February, I had the occasion to speak with Betty in person at the gallery, and she looked at me and she said, you know, I wonder if you might be interested in painting Reed. Now, Reed Mitchell, who is with us today, over there, was Clint's life partner. How many years? 30?
39.
39! 39 years. And married in 2015. And I said, oh, it would be an honor. I would be thrilled. And so she asked Reed, and he said yes, which was wonderful. And a couple weeks later, I came back and sat in the same chair that Clint had sat in front of a different Michael Kennard painting. So, yeah, so I got to work and finished it. It just so happened, you know, gosh, what, 10 days ago or so, not long ago, I called and met Reed over at the gallery, and it's just really exciting that these paintings are here. And last night, yesterday, would have been Clint's 80th birthday. So it's really, really special to have you two here together on the wall, and for Reed and his family to be here. Reed grew up in Lubbock and went to Texas Tech. That's the other thing. So the way this has all come around is really very special. So to wrap up my remarks, portraiture is just a joy and a gift to me as an artist, but just as a human being, to be able to connect with people through my art is, I'm just very grateful for it. And so then to wrap up, I'm going to share in another poem my feelings about this process and my work. And this poem is entitled, "It's No Small Thing." It's no small thing to say yes to being seen. It's no small thing to say yes to being photographed, cropped, printed, recropped, reprinted, folded, gridded, canvassed. It's no small thing to be evaluated, considered, reconsidered, blocked in, blanked out, painted over, reshaped, again, distorted, sometimes accidentally, on purpose, perhaps, but probably not. It's no small thing to notice everything. It's no small thing to say yes to being noticed. It's no small thing to be asked to be seen, or to ask to be seen, or to ask to know or to be known. Finally, it's no small thing to brave the revealing reveal that reveals all it has to say about you and all it has to say about me, drawing, painting, and knowing you. And it's certainly no small thing to have this exhibition and to be here with you all.